Hey gang, welcome to another episode of Tim on the Fly. This is Tim, and we're here on one of the creeks in the local area's streamway parks plan. What they've done is the county here has made a network of streamway parks to kind of provide some greenway space for public use along a lot of the local creeks and streams. They've opened up quite a number of mileage of property here. It gets used mostly by people who are walking, biking, doing that kind of thing, but there are also some really good fishing opportunities here too. So we're going to take advantage of a few of those here. We're going to do things a little differently too. We're going to have, instead of the usual graphite rods that I've been using, we dug out the bamboo today. Nice, pretty little small creek, so we figured, or I figured, maybe that we'd give the bamboo a shot, since this is kind of its native habitat, it seems sometimes. All the pictures we usually see, all of the images that we conjure in our brains of bamboo rods usually involves mountain streams, trout, small water, dry flies. Well, we've got the small water and the dry flies. We don't have anything in the way of mountains here and no trout, but we'll see what we can come up with. So the rod we're going to be using today is just a beautiful little 7-foot 3-inch 4-weight bamboo rod that was built by Mr. Larry Jacobson. He is a local rod builder. I don't think he's doing anything commercially, at least not yet, but I got my hands on this rod. It's just an absolute beautiful little rod. Nice cork, good reel seat. I've got a little 4-weight Lamson Velocity sitting on it that I've had hanging around for a while that just balances it really nicely. So we're going to take it out. We're going to at least start with a dry fly. I've got this little parachute caddis on it right now that we're going to see what happens. We're just going to kind of bounce through these pools here in this little stream, work our way kind of up and down and see what we can catch. And so a lot of people get really intimidated by the idea of a bamboo fly rod, and it's really not that different from a regular fly rod. I mean, some of the myths are that they're really super fragile, and yeah, okay, they're probably a little more fragile than your standard graphite rods, but they'll put up with an awful lot. They'll put up with just about anything a fish is going to give you to deal with. The only thing you have to watch with is, being a natural fiber like the bamboo, the tip section, if you spend too much time with it under too much pressure, and that can be either under fighting fish or just leaning up against the corner of the garage, whatever, it will take a bend, it'll take a set, and kind of form a permanent curvature in the tip of that rod. It can be removed. A lot of times you can just hang it and it'll come out. Other times it might, if it gets really bad, it might take a little steam treatment from somebody that knows what they're doing, but it can be removed. But usually it's not a problem. Most bamboo rods come with 2 tips, and one of the reasons they do, everybody thinks that's because they're so fragile, you've got a replacement tip, but that's not necessarily the case, and we got ourselves a little fish here. That's not necessarily the case. The real reason for that second tip is so that you can rest that rod. Ooh, we got a pretty little long here. So you can rest that rod, and you can rest that tip. You can fish a different tip on each day, or if you're fishing real heavily, through different parts of the day. And that way that tip never gets under enough pressure that it forms that set. So they're not that fragile. Casting is a little bit different. When you're casting a bamboo rod, it's a lot slower action than you would typically think of with a graphite rod, or even in a lot of cases a glass rod. The modern glass rods are a lot faster. If you get an older glass rod, like an old Shakespeare Wonder rod or something, it's going to have a very similar action to the bamboo. But the trick there is just to take a little slower casting stroke. Just relax and let that line unfurl, let that rod load. Unlike a graphite rod where you have to put a little muscle into the rod to get it to load, the bamboo is going to load just fine under just the weight of the line. So you can just relax, take it easy. One of the things I like about the bamboo rod is I can just slow down, I can just let the rod do the work. Very little effort involved. The rods themselves, because they're made of a natural material, tend to be a little heavier, but you know, the fact that you don't have to work them as hard really mitigates that, and you hardly feel the rod in your hand. This is a little 4-weight. It's a light 4-weight, so it's not really that heavy in the hand to begin with. I've got a 6-weight that we'll dig out in another video. We'll go looking for some bigger fish on some bigger water with it, but even it's not too bad. It's like I said, you just relax, just very slow strokes, and just let that line wheel out there, and you can get just as much distance out of a bamboo rod as any other one. Oh, there's a little nicer fish. You can get just as much distance out of a bamboo rod as you can any other rod at the same length and line weight. You just have to relax and let the rod do the work. So, yes, the price can be a little intimidating, but other than that, I mean, if it's, you hang out, you look for estate sales and antique shops and stuff like that, you can come up with a deal on bamboo and get into it without having to spend $3,000 or $4,000. If it's in your budget to do that, by all means, go do it. You'll love what you get for the money. But there are some lower end manufacturers out there, some mass producing rod companies. Headwaters is one that comes to mind. There's a couple others. They're dealing, a lot of times they'll be dealing off of pre-made blanks, and so they can do it a little cheaper. You're still going to spend some money, but you're going to get into those rods for a few $100s instead of a couple thousand. So you don't have to be intimidated by the price either. You can, if you keep your eyes open, get into some deals that'll get you onto the water with the bamboo. Just kind of give yourself a break from the aggressive casting strokes of the graphite and kind of get out and just enjoy the experience, relax and slow down. Let that bamboo do the work and still catch some fish. Got a little bigger fish here. Not a lot bigger, but another pretty good sized green sunfish who for once saw fit to not actually completely eat my fly. There you go. Hey. Say hi to the camera. You get the fly out of your mouth and get you back into water. There we go. I found this little deeper hole here, and I'm throwing the dry fly up along the edges of it and getting some fish and getting some little bit nicer fish. There was a hit I missed. Getting some little bit nicer fish. I think I'm going to give this a couple more casts and maybe put on a little streamer, like maybe a micro clouser or something, and see what we can't dig out of the bottom of this hole. I just have a strange feeling there might be something nicer hiding in there. We got plenty of these little guys along the edges. We'll see if we can't find something a little deeper. Turn you loose. I'm going to stop the camera and re-rig, and we'll be back in a second. Okay, so we've switched up to this little bunny clouser, a little micro clouser, about size 14. Still staying fairly small because the forage base is pretty small, so even a little bigger fish in here are going to be keying on smaller items. So we're going to get this guy in here, get it down a little deeper into this pool. You can see you can't really see that much in the camera, but I can see with my polarized glasses there's some pretty good sized rocks in the bottom of it. And it drops off pretty deep off of this little ledge that I'm standing on. So we might have some little nicer fish in here, or at least some fish that are a little more eager to hit the fly. Doesn't really have a whole lot coming up to grab that. Whoop, there's one already. Just barely dropped it in the water to see what would start getting some line off my rod, and look what happens. So that's a promising first sign. Line off the rod before I put it out in the water then. And let's see what might be a little deeper out in this pool. There we go. Oh, is that another longear? Yes, it is. Another longear come and grab my little clouser, and again, like they usually do, swallowed it right on down, which is okay. Because we are, as we do with all things, running barbless, so it shouldn't be too big of a problem to just pop that out of there. We can find an angle on the fly and the hook, pop him right out. Good look at him. Pretty little guy. Back in the water he goes. And if making that change in the flies, if all it does is puts us on those guys instead of the bluegills and the greens, I'll be happy, because I love catching those. Those might be, in my mind, one of the prettiest fish swimming in fresh water, and that includes all the trout. Kind of remind myself to slow down. That last cast I got a little aggressive, like I was still fishing graphite. Don't get the bamboo rods out nearly as often as I should, and so it takes a little while to get used to them once I do. Yeah. Got a little bit bigger fish here going. Looks like we got ourselves a bass. Still not huge, but putting a nice bend in the rod for me. We can't get him in here and get him landed. Boom, yes, there we go. Nice little largie sitting down in that pool. Took our little micro clouser. Got it right up in the lip. There we go. We got it out. Nice fish, a little bigger than the rest of them. Bye-bye. So switching up to the streamer did help a little bit. That makes 4 species now, and each time we get a new species, they're getting just a little bigger, so that's something, I guess. Here we go. Got something a little nicer. Looks like it might be a bigger green sunfish. Put a nice bend in the rod for me. Oh no. What do we got here? Oh, he got off, whatever he was. I think he's a bluegill. I think he's a bigger bluegill. Got something else on though. It's a little longear. Bonus fish. That bluegill dropped it, and it no sooner fell back in the water, and this guy grabbed it up. Just look at you. Let's get the fly out of you and get you back in the water. There we go. There's some cover up at the head of this pool. I see a downed log and a couple of trees just hanging over the water. We may, if we don't catch anything nicer out of this in just a couple of casts, we may just go ahead and move up. We got another long-eared sunfish here. Yes, we do. Another pretty one. This late in the year, it's the first part of August. I wasn't expecting these guys to still be colored up this way, but these males are in their spawning colors still. And I just hope the camera's doing them justice, because they are just too pretty for words. Get close up there of him, you see all the blues, the turquoises, the oranges, that wonderful long fan-shaped opacurl, and even the reds back in the fins and the tail. Just an absolutely beautiful fish. Getting back in the water and let him swim off, and let's see if we can catch some more. That log that I had laid down that I was pinning the hopes on for the bigger fish turned out to be laying in about 2 inches of water, so there wasn't a whole lot happening there. But this pool was right behind it, and it seems to be full of these little long-eared sunfish, so I'm glad I did come up here. Just absolutely full of these guys. May even have to go back to the dry fly because I see several of them in the pool rising to dries. This is just a little guy, but I think it's all, oh no, they don't get a whole lot bigger than this. I mean, this is pretty much, these are adults. You can see from the hump on his shoulders that he's actually not a young fish. So they don't get very big in this water. About the biggest I've ever caught them is about 6 inches, maybe 6.5. All the books I've read say a 7-incher or an 8-incher is ginormous. They just don't get that big. In this small water, they definitely don't get that big. But just beautiful fish, kind of a warm water analog to brook trout. Honestly, just between you and me, I think they're a little prettier than brook trout, but that's a fight to have with the trout guys another day. I'm just going to enjoy catching them. Just a beautiful little pool stretched out around us, and we got to see where the current starts to dip into that little channel where the tree was at. So right now I'm fishing the still water kind of behind that. There's not a whole lot of current here, which makes it kind of weird that we're catching the long ears, because usually they like the water moving a little more. I didn't expect to really start hitting them until I got down a little further and started getting into some moving water, but take them where I get them. There we go. Guy hit it just right in front of me and took her all the way down. That's been kind of a habit with these guys. Darn good thing I've got the barbless hooks and a good small pair of forceps, because I got teeny tiny little mouths, not a very big mouth, so when something's all the way down there, there's not a whole lot of room to reach. Get back out there. Go. That's what I thought. They're just stacked up right here where this water's moving a little more. Another just big, beautiful male. Whoops. Trying to be gentle with them, which means I'm not gripping them too hard, so sometimes they're flopping loose. Beautiful fish. Out they go. Now I'm just pretty much just casting right up into where that current is starting to feed. That current's starting to quicken up going into that little slot. And they are picking up on it out there, but they're following it just almost all the way in, so I'm having to work this cast just all the way to me before I throw it out again, which is why you're not seeing a lot of the hook sets on the video, I don't think. Maybe you are. There we go. There's one that took it out there in the current. Another one. Can just do this all day. I think I just might. Okay, we got another tree stump / root ball hanging over the edge of the water here, so seems to be quite a few of these around. Oh, there we go. I am snagged up. We're going to be re-rigging here. Notice how I pulled on the straight line on that rod to get that snag out instead of trying to bend the rod up. Getting out snags is just the #1 way to kill a rod, it seems. And so you definitely want to make sure you use the line to break that fly off. Don't try to put pressure on the rod. So that's one way to do it, pulling straight back on the rod so that the line is in a straight line from the fly to the reel, so you don't put any stress on the rod. Another way is the way that I did it back the other couple of holes ago that you saw, when I just, you know, let go of the rod and grab the line itself and use the line to work the fly out. That time I got the fly back, this time I didn't. So we're going to have to stop and re-rig. I think I'm going to do something a little different with this anyway. So this pool's a little deeper, a little stiller. I think we might go the dry dropper route and see what we come up with. See if we can't get down a little. Okay, so really all I've done, I'm rigged up now, so I took a foam beetle and I've got it on my 4X leader here. Because I've got 4X leader, for the drop it I dropped down to 5X. I always usually try to go one smaller. And then I've got just a tiny little midgy kind of caddisy looking thing here that I'm going to drop out there off the bottom of it. Maybe, about 1.5 feet. And we're just going to toss that out there and just kind of let this current that's sweeping through here take it up along that root wad there and see if there's something under there that won't eat it. Or, to be grammatically precise, see if there's something up under there that will eat it, if I don't snag it the very first cast. Up under. Probably should have went, there we go. First fish hit the dry, and it's another long ear. Yep, there we go. Long ear on the dry. See, these guys are pretty aggressive. We've hit them on dries, we've hit them on streamers. They're just real fun to catch. They're just real pretty. They don't get real big, but they come out of pretty places and pretty water, just like trout. They do like their water clean. They tend to like it moving. And so these little creeks, these little rock bottom creeks in here are just ideal. There we go. That one's on the dry too. So we might have to, we might just keep floating that beetle through here. We may not need that dropper. We'll make another couple of drifts and see what happens. There, I think something hit the dropper but didn't take. There we go, there we got one on the dropper. Little tiny guy though. A little green sunfish. Been a while since we've got anything other than a long ear. We started out on greens, then we got to bluegills and got that bass, and then almost went entirely to long ears. Now we're back to greens. That's okay, we'll take it. Got the two on the dry from where I dropped the pig off. Now this beetle is barbless, which makes hooking up these inline dropper systems a little bit of more of a challenge, because you can't just drop off the bend of the hook like you normally do, because there's no barb to hold the dropper on. Now we got things just assaulting that little nymph. And none of them are any bigger than the fly. And we got little tinies beating up on the beetle too. Surely that's not all that's in here. May have to head down to the tail of the pool. But anyway, back to what I was saying about the dropper. I'll probably do a short video here in the next few days on how to rig inline dropper systems with barbless hooks. This looks like it's just full. Oh, there we go. Looks like it's just full of those itty bitties, but oh, we got some bigger bluegills in here taking the dry. Just full of little bitty guys. Don't see very many of the long ears, but I'm just seeing tons of little bitty fish about the size of that beetle just assaulting both flies, just swarming them, but none of them really big enough to take them. So I'm just going to work my way out a little further into this pool and see if we don't find ourselves a few bigger fish out there. Well, whoa, launch that guy. Oh, what do we have here? We got something completely different, and I'm not 100% sure what he is. He's a minnow of some kind. If anybody knows what he is, please let me know. I'm going to look him up when I get home, but check out the blue and the orange in him. He is beautiful. New fish on the species list. Never caught one of those before. Get him back in the water though and let him go. Yeah, there he goes. That was just too cool. Just launched him. He took right as I was picking the fly up out of the water, and he just went through the air. There's another. Oh, this is a nicer fish. Again, in a relative sense, and he's on the nymph. So having the dropper wasn't a bad idea. Looks like maybe a bigger green. Yep, nice sized green sunfish on that little nymph, little dropper nymph. He's big enough we can lip him. There we go. Back in the water you go. Man, those guys are just a blast on this white rod. That's the other thing about bamboo. That sensitivity that lets you make those nice delicate casts also means that every little fish, you can feel everything they do. Every fin flip, you almost know they're going to turn before they do. Just a ton of fun fishing with this thing. There we go. He just swatted the dry fly. Swatted that beetle. Looks like we might be back to long ears. Looks like long ears on the dry, everything else on the dropper. But another big old heavy shouldered male. Pretty fish. Get him back in the water. Get things untangled here. Well, gang, that about does it for another episode of Tim on the Fly. Beautiful morning, beautiful little piece of water here at the Streamway Park, and wow, beautiful rod. That little bamboo just casts real sweet and nice. Beautiful fish, long-ear sunfish. That little minnowy guy that. I'm going to have to find out what he is, and I'll tell you in the description below what he turns out to be if I can figure it out, or one of you guys can tell me down in the comments. First time I've caught one of those, so added a new species to the list today too. Real successful day, had a lot of fun. Had a lot of fun making this video. Hope you had fun watching it. Tight lines. We'll see you in the next one.